All right, let's get ready to dive deep today. We're talking all about mental toughness.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a YouTube video and a blog post by this Shaman Jon Rasmussen.
Okay.
And he's got some really interesting ideas about how our thoughts shape our experiences.
Yeah, it is pretty fascinating, how much power we might actually have. Like, over our own realities, it's kind of like we're writing our own stories all the time.
Right, exactly. So before we get too far into that, maybe we should introduce who this Jon Rasmussen guy is.
Sure.
He's a shaman, so I'm a little curious about how that ties into mental toughness.
Yeah, so shamanism, it's this like ancient spiritual practice that connects the mind, body, and spirit.
Okay.
And shamans are often seen as like these intermediaries between the physical and spiritual realms.
Right.
And they use rituals, ceremonies, sometimes altered states of consciousness even,
Yeah.
to facilitate healing and guidance.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. How does that relate to being mentally tough, though?
Well, Rasmussen really believes that mental toughness is like essential. It's essential for personal empowerment. And he actually sees it as this key part of navigating challenges and even influencing what happens to us.
I see. So it's like almost like you're using your mind to shape your reality.
Exactly. And one way he illustrates this is with a story about this gymnast who broke his neck.
Yeah.
And the doctors told him he would never walk again.
Oh, wow.
But this guy he refused to accept that, and he visualized himself healing. And unbelievably, he was back doing gymnastics in 3 years.
That's amazing. It really makes you think like how much our beliefs can actually impact our reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the placebo effect, like how powerful our minds can really be.
Yeah, it really highlights how our thoughts can kind of become like self-fulfilling prophecies.
Right.
And this leads to something that Rasmussen calls spinning. Have you ever noticed how like your thoughts can just spiral out of control after something happens?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's like when something bad happens, you just keep replaying it in your head.
Exactly.
And it just gets worse and worse.
Yes. We get stuck in these like loops of negativity and we add our own fears and anxieties. And that mental drama then just becomes our reality,
Right.
And it impacts our feelings and our actions, even if it's not, based in facts.
So how do we break free from that? Like how do we cultivate this mental toughness?
Well, Rasmussen, he compares mental toughness to a muscle, that you can strengthen.
Okay.
Just like physical training. It takes practice and discipline. The more we work at it, the better we get at controlling our thoughts and choosing more empowering narratives for ourselves.
That's a great analogy. He even suggests treating mental toughness like a job, right?
Yeah, he does. He encourages writing job descriptions for different roles in our lives and approaching those roles with that same focus and commitment that we would as, a professional responsibility.
That's an interesting idea. That's really interesting. But I wonder if that risks making self-improvement feel like just another chore. Like how do you balance that discipline with, self-compassion?
That's a great point. It is a delicate balance for sure.
Yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot, where we're challenging ourselves without being overly critical or harsh.
Right. So it's not about beating yourself up for every little slip up,
Yeah.
but it's more about recognizing that setbacks are a part of the process.
Exactly. And speaking of process, Rasmussen also talks about visualizing a team that relies on your focus and your mental strength.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, that we're all in this together feeling, and there's this whole support system counting on you to be your best.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a powerful image. It makes you feel like your efforts have a ripple effect. They impact the people around you. It's like recognizing that our individual mental toughness can contribute to like a greater good.
Absolutely. It really underscores how interconnected our lives are. And this leads to some of the practical exercises that Rasmussen recommends for, building mental toughness.
Okay, let's hear them. I'm ready to start putting this into practice.
Well, one that really stood out was this idea of like setting these small challenges for yourself.
Okay.
Starting with something really simple. Something like getting up when your alarm goes off instead of hitting snooze.
Oh, yeah. I think we've all been there, battling the snooze button.
Right.
It sounds almost too simple, but how does that build mental toughness?
Well, it might seem small, but it's like tackling procrastination head on.
Right.
Which can be a major obstacle when it comes to mental toughness.
Yeah.
Each like little victory you have reinforces the idea that you are capable of sticking to your goals.
Okay.
Plus, those small wins, they build momentum.
Yeah.
Kind of like a snowball effect.
So it's about building confidence through consistency.
Exactly. Each time you succeed, you prove to yourself that you can overcome that initial resistance. And that makes it easier to tackle the bigger challenges down the road.
That makes sense. What other exercises does he suggest?
Another one that I thought was really interesting was this emphasis on visualization.
Yeah.
He talks about picturing a team that's relying on your mental strength, like
Right.
we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it's like you're drawing on the energy and support of a group,
Mhm.
even if you're tackling something individually.
That's a great way to put it. He also talks about his own experience with a shamanic practice called ayahuasca,
Okay.
which he describes as kind of like this mental boot camp.
Oh, wow.
It's known for inducing these like profound altered states of consciousness.
Yeah, I've heard of ayahuasca before, but I don't really know much about it. How does that connect to mental toughness?
Well, Rasmussen, he says, is like, you're carrying this heavy pack up a hill and then suddenly you just take off the pack.
Yeah.
He believes it can help strengthen mental toughness by forcing you to confront like your deepest fears and limiting beliefs head on. It's not about avoiding those difficult emotions, but facing them, directly.
Yeah, that sounds pretty intense.
It definitely is, but it is important to note that ayahuasca is a serious practice,
Yeah.
and it should only be approached with careful preparation and guidance from, experienced practitioners.
Right.
It's not something to be taken lightly.
For sure. But I guess the underlying principle of confronting your fears and limitations, that resonates even without the ayahuasca experience.
Right, and it brings us back to this core idea.
Mm.
Mental toughness isn't about being born with some special gene or having, an easy life. It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's about deciding to master your mind and create a more empowering reality for yourself.
It's really inspiring to hear that it's a skill that anyone can develop.
Yeah.
It makes it seem so much more attainable.
It absolutely is. And it's not about suppressing emotions.
Okay.
It's about understanding them and choosing how to respond. It's about taking responsibility for your inner world and recognizing that your thoughts shape your experiences.
So it's about becoming more conscious and intentional with our thoughts.
Exactly. Now, I'm curious, what stood out to you the most from what we've discussed so far? Like, what resonated with you personally?
That's a great question. I think what really struck me is this idea that mental toughness is essential not just for individual success, but for navigating our increasingly complex and demanding world.
Yeah.
It's like a key to unlocking your potential.
That's a great observation. We're constantly bombarded with, information and the stimulation, and it can be so easy to feel overwhelmed or get pulled in a bunch of different directions.
Yeah.
Mental toughness gives you that inner compass, to stay grounded and focused.
It's like having that inner warrior that helps you stay resilient in the face of all those challenges. And to think that we can train that inner warrior through these simple but powerful exercises,
Right.
it's incredibly empowering.
It is. It is. And it's not about becoming invincible. It's about learning to bounce back from setbacks, persevere through challenges and keep growing. It's about embracing the journey with all its ups and downs.
It reminds me of that saying, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah.
But, instead of it just being a cliche, we're actually talking about how to navigate that journey with more resilience and intention.
Precisely. And speaking of journeys, Rasmussen offers a really interesting perspective on success.
Okay.
He seems to suggest that true success lies not in achieving specific outcomes, but in the continuous effort to cultivate mental toughness.
So it's about focusing on the process of growth and development rather than just ticking boxes on a to-do list.
Exactly. It's about striving to become the best version of yourself rather than chasing these external markers of success.
This has been so insightful. It's amazing how much depth there is to this concept of mental toughness.
It really is a fascinating subject, and it seems like we've, uncovered some really valuable takeaways for our listeners.
We definitely have. So let's recap what we've learned so far. We've explored this concept of mental toughness through the lens of shamanism, delved into the power of storytelling,
Right.
and even touched upon the idea of using these intense experiences, like ayahuasca, as a training ground for the mind.
Yeah, and we've discussed some practical exercises that anyone can use to start cultivating mental toughness, like setting those small challenges, visualizing a supportive team, and treating mental discipline as a job.
And we've talked about the importance of shifting our focus from outcome-based success to process-based growth,
Yeah.
recognizing that the journey of self-mastery is just as important as the destination.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this step dive, there's one final thought-provoking question I'd like to leave our listeners with. If our thoughts shape our reality, what story are you choosing to tell yourself today?
Wow, that's a powerful question to think about. It really challenges us to become more aware of our inner narrative.
Yeah, doesn't it? We often just go through life on autopilot, letting our thoughts just run wild without even, really realizing it. But what if we could become, like, more conscious creators of our own experiences?
That's what's so exciting about all this is like realizing you can just change the channel, shift your focus from those negative thought loops to something more empowering.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean we have to ignore challenges or pretend everything's perfect. It's about acknowledging those difficulties while choosing to focus on, solutions and possibilities and your own inner strength.
So it's not about like toxic positivity or denying negative emotions.
Not at all. It's about recognizing that those emotions are just part of being human. Mental toughness is about learning to navigate those emotions without letting them control you.
It's like developing that inner resilience to, weather the storms, knowing that you have the tools to come out stronger.
Exactly. And remember, mental toughness is a journey, not a destination. There will be setbacks, there will be challenges, but the key is to just keep practicing, keep learning, and keep growing.
It's so easy to get caught up in the idea of like reaching some perfect state of mental strength.
Mhm.
But what I'm hearing is that it's more about the continuous effort. The daily practice of showing up for yourself.
You got it. It's about building those mental muscles just like you would with physical exercise. Some days you'll feel stronger than others, but the important thing is to keep showing up.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of mental toughness and its power to transform our lives.
It's been a pleasure exploring this fascinating topic with you. I hope our listeners feel inspired to start cultivating their own mental resilience and create a more empowered reality for themselves.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.